can you give me screen sharing, please? All right. Once again, thanks everybody for joining. This is Nashville Modern Excel and Power BI user groups. Thanks for joining our meeting today. Looking forward to presenting and connecting with everybody. If you are local, there is Wi-Fi there. I'm not sure who has it on the board, but this is a slide, and I think that's the Wi-Fi. If you're not Wi-Fi and you're on Zoom, then you're already connected to internet, so there's no problem there. Agenda. So there is lunch there if you are local. So I think the lunch is in the back. There's pizza there. Any announcements that we have, what's new in Power BI, Power Apps, and Power Query. And then I get into a session on Power BI tips and tricks. The goal is to do 30 tips and tricks in 30 minutes. So this is one of those sessions that will be recorded. I'm going to fly through some of this stuff, but you can check it out on our YouTube page if you missed anything. And then there's social hour or 15 minutes, however it longs. And we can hop on and just connect with everybody. So any announcements? I don't think there are any new announcements at the moment. Will or Mike, y'all have anything?
I don't have anything.
Okay, cool. So no new announcements. We'll be releasing new sessions and let you know when our newest one in September comes out. But as far as announcements, we don't have anything big right now. As always, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't, right now we have 152 subscribers. I would like to see that at 200 by the end of the week. So if you have not joined our YouTube and subscribed and liked and see our old sessions, feel free to go there and subscribe. I'm biased, but I feel like we have really great content on our channel, so check it out. Job opportunities. So this is the time to announce any job opportunities that are available. So if you're hiring or looking to hire, if you know anybody that's hiring, this is the moment to kind of announce that information. So I'll pause there. All right, I don't see anything in the chat and I don't hear anything, so I'm going to assume we're all fulfilled at where we're at. So if you have any opportunities or anything going forward, let us know. We're always looking to, make sure we get the best opportunities and the best resources into the place that matters. Next is what's new. So we're looking at the latest update on Power BI, just was released. A lot of cool things that came out of there. One of the coolest one is conditional formatting for the data labels. So I'll have a screenshot. I won't necessarily dive too deep into it. And then there's also the monthly YouTube video that goes into this stuff that is directly from Microsoft that shows you kind of the ins and outs of it. But I think the conditional formatting of data labels is really cool. So before this, you could do formatting on the actual, let's say the bar chart itself, and you could do highlight kind of the min and max or do based on the aggregate or the measure that you're using. But now you can actually conditional format the data labels as well. So that's a really, really cool feature. Select sensitivity label is really nice. Data loss prevention. And then the metrics visual. So anybody who's using metrics, there's a new visual that helps with using the metrics that are out there. Mobile formatting. So if anybody who develops to mobile, this is a really cool one. It supports the text box visuals, which is a really big deal if you want to add context and more information to your dashboards. Modeling, the DAX editor has improvements that they went deeper into. And then data connectivity, as always, you can't connect to your data, can't do anything. So they're always looking at ways to improve and connect to data sources. So MariaDB, Google Sheets has an update. So if anybody's using Google Sheets, this is a really cool one. And then certified connectors availability in Power BI data flows and data marts. So as always, Microsoft is always improving their data connectors. So without doing just a hardcore demo of this is the conditional formatting on the data labels. So what's really cool here is that if you're looking at a line chart, and it's not a bar chart, but the line chart now is you can highlight kind of min and max values or do different things with your labels. So in this instance, they did their lowest values were red and their highest values were blue, and you kind of see the gradient of that color in this particular example. So now it gives you a little bit more flexibility with kind of calling out and telling the insights and telling that story, and gives the user just more ways to do more data storytelling, data visualization practice out there. So this was a really cool update. This is just a really quick screenshot that I grabbed, but there's a lot of different things that you can do with it as well. And then Power BI as well released follow metrics from your mobile app, developers, visualizations and new visuals in App Source. So I feel like App Source always has a lot of things out there. So that's really great to see. Editors pick a quarter, drop, drill down, combo, and more ways to optimize Power BI performance. Power Apps perspective. So Power Apps released a few. Yeah.
Could I interrupt? I was going to expand on that.
Sure.
Optimize Power BI performance. If I could share real quick.
Yeah.
By the way, I asked Sekou ahead of time if I could share, but I didn't tell him when. So this would be the logical time. So let me open up my slides real quick and I'll share. So last month I talked about Power Query performance. Well, it was kind of my story with Power Query, but performance was a big part of it. And Power Query's been out for 9 years, and I don't think I've seen much in the way of performance improvement. They've probably worked on it, but there hasn't been like a feature or really a mention of them working on performance. And then this month they did. So I figured it's worth a mention since we talked about it last month. So let me share my screen. And it was just like a little note at the very bottom of the blog. They barely even went into it, but I got excited about it. So I just wanted to share. So if you go to the options and settings in Power BI, so options and settings and options, you'll see under the global data load, there's this new section called parallel loading of tables. So Power BI is always parallel loaded, and you could always turn it off so it could do one at a time. So if your machine didn't have a lot of processor, you could dial it back so it wouldn't destroy your machine. So you've always been able to do that, but this time you can actually set the number. So you could set it to as number as threads as your CPU has. And you can also raise the amount of memory that each query has available to it. So this, if you have bigger data sizes, you can kind of play with what's the optimal number of simultaneous evaluations and how much memory you want to give it. So this helps you if you don't have a lot, you can kind of protect your computer more than you could before. And then if you do have a lot, you can kind of amp it up and say, I want just to eat all this data, gobble it up. So today, I hadn't had a chance to really play with it, but let me go to the next slide. Oh yeah, there's also in the current file, you can also, so you can set the global default for every time it's open. And you can also set one per Power BI desktop report. You could have a default that'll take the global, or you can have it to be one, which is disabling the parallel loading, or you can do a custom, how many parallel do you want to be at the same time? So you have control over what it's going to do. So I did a test with the current report I was working on, and it was not the best one to test it. It had 9 queries, so there was some parallel, but all of them ran really fast except for one. So it wasn't the greatest test. So I did it with the defaults, which is 6 simultaneous evaluations. And actually, no, I take that back. I had it at the defaults as the global, but then at the test level, I did no parallel processing. So you can see here that really one of my cores is being used in this case. And I have a really crazy desktop that has a lot of cores. So, and this took 2 minutes and 13 seconds. And then I did 6 parallel queries, and you can see it really only used 2 of the cores really. Initially it used a lot, and then it just used 2, and it took 1 minute and 50 seconds. So that's roughly 23 seconds faster. This is not the best one to test it on. And then I did, I added memory. So I actually could give each query 10 gigs of memory, which is just ridiculous. And it didn't run any faster because it was a bad, it wasn't a big data size. And then finally, I did 16 queries at the same time and 3.5 gigs. And it went slower because this is just a bad example. But anyway, that's what I did to test it out. It was not a good one to test with. But if you do have bigger data sizes, or you have a laptop that's low powered, these could be some good settings to play with, and they're new this month. And I'll hand it back to you, Sekou.
That was great. Thanks for that, Will. I didn't even catch in some of the ins and outs. So thanks for that example. And I think
Yeah,
that's
it was
cool.
buried. We actually do have a question in the room, Sekou.
Yep.
1 second. Jennifer's going to come over so everybody can hear her.
So is there an impact with that option on a global scale for an enterprise? So if you're publishing and you change all of those settings, how much of an impact does it really have on a global stance? Because when we run things right now, we have an issue with how it connects within Teradata, and it'll run our code multiple times in Teradata. So would this impact those types of refreshes as well if we start changing those?
I believe it's just local. I think
Okay.
it's just within your Power BI desktop. I don't think it translates to the cloud. So I think they have control over the cloud and how parallelized it is.
'Cause
And
if
they're
we leave
doing,
it-
but it's like a black box. We don't know what they're doing back there. So I
Okay,
don't think they've exposed it, but
okay.
yeah, this is just local.
And,
Back to you,
Will,
Sekou.
in this example, did you use, I guess like you did last month, your parameter on a smaller data set, or was this a full blown data set that had a bigger data size?
This was a bigger data size, but it wasn't that big.
Okay.
So I'm sure it wasn't over or probably 1 million, but not over 1 million. And so I think this would really benefit if you had millions. If you had a lot of data and you needed extra memory to make it go faster, or you had multiple big, if you had multiple big tables that could be loaded in parallel, that's where this would pay off. And this scenario did not have that, unfortunately. I just did it this morning, like I said, so I will be playing with this in the future for sure.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for that. I appreciate that. That was really good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So then to the new update. So Power Apps specifically. So if you don't know, this was a new blog that came out from the Power Apps team. This is their inaugural Power Apps monthly feature. So similar to Power BI, how Power BI has their monthly feature, Power Apps is rolling out and doing the same thing. And so this was July's. I didn't see anything for August yet. But basically, there has all the updates. So what they have is trust, maker productivity, and user productivity. And I don't think they have a video yet. They have kind of some screenshots, some screen grabs and everything. So if you're big into Power Apps, subscribe to this. You can get all the monthly updates and again, understand exactly what's going on. And then they provide examples and stuff. So I thought this was really cool from a Power Apps team, just how they're trying to get that information out in front of you. And then same thing for Power Automate. So for the August edition, one of the newest ones is Excel action for resizing rows, columns has been introduced. So this is a really cool one if you're doing a lot of stuff in Excel with Power Automate. And then you can also crop text as well. And then there are SharePoint connectors that are being introduced in Power Automate for desktop specifically, and they're all in preview. So if you are using either of these two tools, definitely check out this stuff, see if there's anything that benefits you and that you can use. But it looks like, again, they're rolling out some really good stuff out there for Power Apps and Power Automate. And so with that, I think the next thing now is to go into Power BI tips and tricks. So I will go into my session, and the goal is 30 tips in 30 minutes. I think I have 30, I might have more, I might have less. I do know I have 30 minutes. So I'm gonna see what all I can do in getting this out to you and this information. So start off with is have this in 3 sections. I have a Power Query section, I have a DAX section, and then I have a data visualization section. So first we're gonna start off with is our Power Query section. And the biggest piece, what we always need to do, right, we need to get data. So we'll touch on this last month if you're at our meeting, but basically there are multiple ways to get data. I'm going to use this as a way to generate data from an actual website. So to start off with, I have the website that I want. And if y'all know me, y'all know I like sports data. So everything's always going to be sports related with some of my examples, some of my scenarios. So what I want to do is, in this scenario, I want to look at the Los Angeles Lakers 2020 season, and I want to bring back all the stats for that particular team. And instead of me just copying and pasting and putting this to the CSV and importing it, I'm just going to use this website and bring it into the Power Query and use that as my way of connecting to the data. So what we can do is select get data, And you can go to all, you go to other, you be web, and then you also get that and select web, but you come in here and select web. And if you just come in here and input it, you can see that you can now connect to the actual data source itself. And now we have a Power Query window come up here in a second, whenever it decides.
We won't count the slowness.
I know, man, this is crazy.
That's not fair.
This is your computer too.
Nice.
All right, this is taking forever, but basically, here it is. It's coming. All right, so I already have it. Luckily for demos, you kind of pre-do some of this stuff. So I have per year, per table, trying to pull in. And in essence, you would then have the actual data itself come in, and then I should have a row and tables and everything and all this stuff with the information that I want. But it is taking forever in here. But this is an example of how we would bring in data. And that's example one. Example two, even though it's not working, I'll just go to the source itself. And if I want to use a parameter, we'll do this example where you can create a parameter. And you can leverage the parameters in this particular instance. So if I'm looking at this website, and we see here basketball reference team, Los Angeles Lakers 2020. So if I wanted to input a parameter and I wanted to just say, I want to bring in 2021 data, 2022, 2019, what have you, all you would do is just change this year, and you would then have that information. So 2019 would have that information. So if my Power Query was working like I wanted it to, I would then have my source where I would break that up, and I would have my basketball reference Los Angeles Lakers, and then my parameter that I built, actually, let me show you that parameter. Our parameter that I built out is based on the value. So I have 2019, 2020, and 2021. So when I go to my actual source, when I'm inputting that information, now I have the ability to break it out, and my parameter runs the link for me. So if I would just change my parameter to say 2020, then in a perfect world, in a perfect demo, my information now would say 2020, and then I would have the results for the 2020 results in my Power Query example. So that is one. Another one, since this is not working for me, let me change gears and go to a data set that I have stored locally. Let me go to my transfer data. So this is all Power Query stuff, and let me change my data source. All right, so Power Query, let's say I have Power Query. Now I want to do some manipulation with this information that I have. So a couple of things that you can do is, if I want to go, I have all these columns in here, and there's stuff that I just want to get rid of. Let's say I only want to keep 3 columns of the information I have. What I can do is I can select Shift. Here are 4 columns that I only want to keep. I can right click on here, and then I can select Remove Other Columns. So what this does is that I can remove the other columns that I want, and it removes the columns for me. Another thing that you can do as well is, say there's a column that I want to go to and find. So if there's a actual column that I'm looking for, if I go here and go to choose columns up here in the top left, and say, I know what the column is that I want, but it's so wide, I have no idea where it's actually located at, because there's so many columns in here. There's a couple ways you can do it. You come in here and select choose columns, and it gives you a drop down, and you keep what you want. Or you can come in here and select go to column, and then you can search it this way, or you can actually start typing the information that you want. So if I know if I want my date slicer, this will then take me to that column, and I can see the information in that column. So 2 ways of kind of maneuvering in Power Query, you can do that. Also, if I wanted to say create an index column, I can come in here and select transform and add a column and go to index column. And I can quickly create an index column. Some people use index columns for particular reasons, but without doing any type of advanced calculations. I can come in here and select add column, index columns, and then now I have an index in there. As I have created stuff, let me just go and do this and just do some stuff to just generate some information. And let's see, remove column. So everything that I've done in here has created steps. So I've added an index, I removed other columns, removed duplicates, and removed columns. And all these are generated 4 steps that I've done in Power Query level itself. But one thing that's really cool is, let's say we know that all this stuff is removed. So if I want to remove it, I can just come here and click it and it's removed. But let's say I wanted to come in here and remove every single thing that I've done since the beginning. I can come in here and right click and I can select, instead of delete, delete until end. And what this does is that it deletes all the steps that I've done to the very end and it starts fresh. So this is kind of like a delete all, I guess you could say. So if I come here and select delete until end, this gives you a warning saying, hey, you're about to delete everything. Come in here and delete it and you're back at where you started at from that step. Another cool thing in here as well is column from examples. So let's say if I want to create a custom column, just for this example, I'll remove other columns. And let's say I want to create another column in here. Let's see, remove duplicates. So right now I have 4 years in here. Let's say I'm going to create a column from example, and I'll just say this selection. So what I want to do is do 2017. And then I can do, so I'll make this other, and it'll automatically fill it in for me. So column from example is really cool if there are specific things that you want to look for, or there's different cadences. Using column from examples can help speed up some of that calculation build out that you might type out. It looks at a certain pattern that you're kind of typing out and can build it out for you. So in this example, what it did for me is basically it created this if statement for me. So if year is greater than 2018, then other, else 2017. But from what all I did was just type in 2017 and I just typed in other and it did that for me. So column from example is a really good way of kind of cutting out some of that development that you could potentially do. So if we remove that, one thing as well is monospace. So if I'm trying to view information, so let's say, for example, I think all of these week numbers should all be 10 digits or something. Right now, I can eyeball it and I can kind of look at it. I can do a count of the actual length itself. But one way, if you want to kind of eyeball it, what you can do is go to view. And if you select monospace, you can kind of see it kind of spaced out. And any of the outliers, let's say there was a 0507, you could quickly kind of see that information as you're eyeballing it. So monospace gives you the ability to kind of view information if you're kind of just eyeballing it, and spaces it out to where you're kind of looking at it and looks a little bit more just in line with what you expect. So viewing monospace is cool. There's also column distribution, column profile. This gives you just column quality. So if you're looking at some of the information that you have, this gives you just more information on what it is. So if I'm coming here and I know I have 4 distincts because there's only 4 quarters, I know that quickly in the information that I have. You know, this is valid, there aren't any errors, and it's empty, and it is 0 unique. So this is just some Power Query views to give you more insight into your actual data information itself that you have. Another thing as well is, let's say, for example, we're doing a whole bunch of Power Query transformation. So if I am keeping the year, let's say I'm keeping this and I'm removing duplicates, and then I have what I need. So what you can do in Power Query is you can actually create properties and you can create information and statements in here showing what you're doing and why you did it. So what you could do is come in here, right click and go to properties, and you can add a description saying remove duplicate this table, click OK. And then now you see this icon in here. And basically what this does is if you have someone who's coming behind you, or even if you come behind yourself, you can put information on this particular Power Query step that leaves you some breadcrumbs of why you did what you did. So if you can come in here, there's 2 ways to view it. If you right click on here and go back to properties, you can see what you typed, or if you go to advanced editor up here to look at your actual Power Query steps, you'll see that what you typed is right here. So the information that you have, so depending on how you want to consume, just any type of additional information and steps that you have, it automatically generates it for you. So as you're going back into your code, it'll be saved there for you. So that is the Power Query side of things. Let me get my source data up and running for this. Thought I had it connected. So 1 second. And something here. We're cool there because that's the step. All right. So,
Sekou, I already learned something. Thank you.
Did you?
I was talking to Sekou before and saying every time he talks, I learn something, and he said that he wasn't sure, but I already learned something.
All right, awesome. That's what I like to hear. All right, so this is the Power Query section of things. So next one we're going to do is actually get into some DAX. So now with DAX, right, data analysis expressions, that's this Microsoft thing. And oh man, where did I break? 1 second. I had this going. Oh, I know what I did. Sorry. Let me go to Power Query. So because I did some transformations on my data, my date table decided it didn't want to work. So let's go ahead and show you what all I did. Go back here, delete until end, hit delete, and let's close and apply. And then my example should come back because I have my date table. All right, so let's go into here. So let's actually get into some DAX. And within the DAX, what we have, I have a simple data model. I have a sales table, I have a product table, and then I have a calendar table. My calendar table should be linked up to here. So let me link this back up. All right, and then my calendar table needs to be a date table. So one tip as well, if you're doing any data modeling, if you want to make sure that you are marking your date table as a date table. So you come in calendar, select mark as date table, select the date that you want to do, and come in here and select date. And this is my date column. And then now your data model should know that this is your date table. So particularly, one thing that I learned when I first started out was time intelligence functions. There's some really great time intelligence functions out there that just lets you do a lot of different things. So the first one that I learned that I really started using was the year-to-date function. And basically, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of information on time intelligence. But I think if you're definitely just learning out in DAX, the use case for this is if I want to generate and look at the days total information to year to date automatically. I can just use this total date year to function. I can use whatever my measure, my aggregate is. So I'm just doing total sales. I'm in a unique measure, which is just sum of sales. And then I'm using my calendar date table. So now what this is doing for me when I populate this year to date is now we see we have our rolling year to date totals for the information that we have. So we start in December. We see it's 489, but then there's nothing else until January. So we see January, it starts over 1538, and then it's rolling all the way until December. So we see our year-to-date totals using this function gives us that automatically. And then January starts, partitions back over, and we see now that is rolling over. So year-to-date is a great function that I definitely use quite often if I'm doing any type of year-to-date analysis. Same thing as well, if I were to come in here and select, let's say I want to look at the previous year information. So I come in here and select previous year. So what were my total values for the previous year? So in this example, we see that year-to-date totals were 489,000. And then the previous year as a repeating value is 489,000. So this example, this actual DAX function is using our favorite function of calculate. So calculate, we're using our measure, which is total sales. And then in here, we're using a previous year, and then we're using our date table. So basically, we create that function, and we're using the previous year as our time intelligence. That gives us a previous year value. And then same thing, it'll say I wanted same period last year. So in this example, if I wanted to look at what my value was the same period of time last year, I would then look at that function as well. So same type of concept. I have calculate total sales, and I have same period last year using that function. So again, great functions that you can use for any of your time information that you're trying to show. And what this does is basically, if I'm looking at December 1st, 2018, and I want to compare what was my value in 2017, it brings that value row record right there for you. So again, some couple DAX functions for you. And then same thing for previous month. If I want to look at my value for the previous month, if I'm looking here on the same line, I see that my sales for January 2019 in context of what we have in our data. We have January 1st, 2018. We had $1 million here, but we know last month we had 489. If I wanted to bring that value in real quickly, I would just do that calculate and previous month calculation to bring that information in for me. And that is how a starting point for time intelligence functions. So that is one starting point for that. Next, I'm going to go into formatting. So a couple of things when it comes to our formatting is we can do some conditional formatting, and we can, add some context to some of our tables and add information. So what I'm going to do is remove this and spread this out, get this a little bigger, and then let me change the format of this so it's a little bit cleaner. All right, so basically what I'm using now for this example is I have the month, and then I have my total sales, and then I have my previous month function. So everything going forward is going to use these two. And then I'm going to use a variance in essence for showing the value. So what I want to show first is how you can use an arrow in your DAX and your Unicode to show an increase or decrease. This is one way. It might not be the best way, but this is a way to where you can actually have your code show that arrow go up and down. So what I'm doing here in my DAX is I create a variable. If you don't know what variables are, basically variables are ways that you can, I won't say temp tables, but they're ways that you can really segment kind of things that you're doing. So I have a couple variables in here where I created a variable variance where I'm just doing total sales minus previous. And then I have a KPI indicator. And basically from here, I'm using another variable, which is doing a if statement, a switch statement, which basically says, if this variable, which is my variance that I just created, is blank, then don't show anything. If it is less than 0, then give me this unicard character of 11205, which is an arrow down. And if it is greater than 0, then give me the unicard character of 11206, which is the arrow up. And so now that these are string values, what I had to do is I wanted to bring this together to show what my variance is. And I wanted to format it as a $sign, but then I also wanted to add that indicator together on the same line. So this is where I'm saying this is kind of not best practice because I'm doing some formatting. So if you're really big on performance and all that stuff, format might be a slower option. But what this finally looks like when you're done is your prior year variance will look like this. So in my code itself, where this is 0, I have my arrow pointing down. Where this is up, I have the arrow pointing up. So as we look at any type of difference between the two, we see that 3,000 minus 713 is producing a negative product. So I have an arrow going down. So I'm able to do this in my code itself. And this is just a way, if you're trying to use some of your unicard, there's a way to add some of that information. So this is one example for showing conditional formatting. Another example would be if I wanted to do, let's say I wanted to do icons and I want to bring in my prior year variance. So now we have just the values itself. So just to show you what this calculation is, it's just total sales minus previous month. So we have the same value on this row. But let's say I want to do some conditional formatting. If I come in here and click on my prior year variance calculation that I built, click on conditional formatting, and let's say I wanted to create icons. So within here, now you have the ability to look and use different values for what it is that you want to do. So I did the exact same thing, except I created a actual calculation for icons, and it's using the exact same context. So the exact same calculation that I did earlier, exact same thing. And if it's 0, then 0, 1, 2, and that's it. That's all I want to use. So if I come in here and I go to my prior year variance, go to conditional formatting, and let's say I want to add an icon, I come in here and I select prior year variance icon. Yes. And if let's say icon only, and I want this to be equals number. So 1 and then 2, I'm just gonna leave these as is. But basically, because of the DAX that I built out, if this is blank, then give me this column here. If this is 1, then give me this this icon here. And then if there's 2, then give me this icon. So now I'm using that DAX formula that I built out, select OK. And now we have that icon only. So there's ways that you can do icon only if you want to do that. Another thing as well, that is really cool is that you can actually use colors in your DAX as well. So you can use that as a field value. So again, exact same thing as before. Instead of it being blank 0, 1, now I actually have red and green in here. So if I wanted to use this particular field as my background, it would then recognize red and it will recognize green. So basically what this looks like is if I go back to my conditional formatting, and I bring it in here, let's say conditional formatting, and I want to do a background color and format style. Let's say I want to use the field values only. I would come in here and I would select my prior year variance colors, select OK. And then now it's doing it for me by default. So because again, this is red, this is green, I can code that out in DAX and it'll automatically do that coloring for me versus me coming here and manually select it. I forgot the colors that it can do. I think it is blue. I think it can do RGBs as well, if I'm not mistaken, but I do know there's ways that you can do this in your code and it automatically does the background for you. So that's that. So if we go into one of my personal favorite updates is small multiples. So if you're unfamiliar with small multiples, basically it gives you the ability to create different visuals all together in a visually more appealing way. And you can look at information. So in this example, we have our year, month, we have our total sales, we have our categories. Let's say I wanted to create and make this a bar chart. So we know now that this is a bar chart. We have a stack bar chart and you can kind of see the story, what's going on. You have accessories, bikes, clothing, components, and you kind of see it stacked together. Maybe you want to move it around. But let's say I want to break this out and I really want to compare over time by the actual individual categories. So small multiples is a great way of doing that to where you just bring in your dimension that it is that you want to break out as an individual category. Come in here, bring it on the small multiples. Now you have accessories, bikes, clothing, components, all in one particular area, and you're able to look at a comparison over time, depending on what it is that you're looking for. So we know that bikes in our previous view, we know that bikes was the highest selling, thing here, but it's kind of convoluted when you're looking at it this way because it's just so stacked up together. But by bringing it into small multiples, we can still see the information that bikes is overwhelming, but then we can also compare bikes to itself in a much easier format. So small multiples is great for a different way of showing some data visualization. And another thing as well is here, let's take the exact same example. And let's say I wanted to show the min and max values per category. So I want to look at what my highest sales, my lowest sales per bikes, per accessories, per clothing, per components. And what you would do is you still use the exact same concept, but you got to create a little bit of DAX to go with that. So to show you what that DAX looks like is using a template from Sekou BI. This is one of my favorite calculations that is on there. And basically what it's doing is creating a calculate table. So I'm just only bringing the information that I want. So I have my category, I have my year, month, and I have my total sales. What makes this a little bit different than the website is the all selected. I brought in the year, month because I wanted to partition by the year, month. And then from there, I'm looking at what's my minimum value, what's my maximum value, and then what's my current value. And then the exact same concept as I did before. I have if this value equals whatever I'm looking for, give me 1, else 2. So my min values are 1 and my max values are 2. And then I bring back that result. So how this plays out from a small multiples example is if we're looking at a data perspective, the small multiples that we have in this DAX, we see now by accessories, we see that our min and max value is 585. And then we see the accessories is 54,000. So we see that quickly, but then another thing, as we scroll down, we should see another 1 and 2 for our other category. So we see it for bikes as well. And then we see it for bikes here. So we see our min and max values, and then it should repeat for every single category. So this is what it looks like in a tabular format, in a table format. But if I were to come in here and actually make this into a small multiples, did this ahead of time, and if I go to selection, this is what it looks like from a small multiples perspective. So now we're able to call out key insights from our individual categories. So now we see that the max value is this and our min value is that. Because this is so small, you can't really see it, but in comparison, we have our max value and our min value. So there's ways to do conditional formatting, even in your small multiple tables that kind of call out the highs and lows or whatever it is you want to call out in there. And I think it's really cool insight with small multiples. All right. Next, we have what if parameters. So if you're not familiar with parameters, there are 2 different ways that you can do parameters. There's what if, which is basically a numeric range in here. So you come in here, you generate a parameter, and it would be what if. And basically what it does is just generate series between 0 and 40. If you ever need this to go higher, you just come in here and input the information that you want, and it goes to 60. And basically what it does is you can then use this parameter as kind of a slicer for different things that you could give your users to have kind of self-service feel. So what this looks like in this example is, let's say I want to do a rank of my sales over time. So I have my year, month, and then I have my total sales. And so what I created was a rank function using rank X. So if I come in here and I just have my rank function, and so now I have 1 through whatever numbers that it's doing, and it's populating. And so basically I'm looking at what are my highest sales, period, and where do they rank? So we know our highest sales is was March 1st, 2019, that ranks 1. And then as you progress, you see it gets lower and lower until it eventually goes, and it's just 33 because there's no sales, because they're all null values. So what you could do is, let's say I want to do a chart and I wanted my user to say, hey, I only want to see my top 10 sales. That's it. I don't want to see anything else. You can do a filter, you can do that, or you can have this parameter affect multiple calculations at once, doing it all the same way. So what you can do is, if you're doing some DAX, if I come in here and I'm using that exact same rank function, come in here, I have that, and then now I have an if statement where if my rank is less than or equal to the parameter that I just built out, and they give me total sales. That's all I want to show. I don't want to show anything else. So now what this does, if I bring this onto my table and I do rank X, we see now that these are all showing because my parameter is set to 40. But let's say hypothetically, I want to do just top 10. We see now my top 10 is only showing, and then I'm using that exact same measure in my chart. Now I'm only showing my top 10 values. So it gives you anything in your DAX calculation that you want to do less than or equal to, or anything that has a numeric value. This could be, I want to look at the rolling 12 months. I want to look at the rolling last 18 months. If you put a parameter in there, it gives your users the ability to, again, self-service and kind of drag and drop and use some manipulation there. So this is one example of what you can use for what if parameter, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do for any of those top 10 or last 15 or top N type of scenarios that you might have. Another favorite of mine is field parameters. So this just came out 2 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. And again, same concept when it comes to parameters. So if I come in here, I already created them, but if you want to create a field parameter, what you can do is come in here and select the fields that you want. Just to show you what it looks like. If I come in here and if I go to product, let's say I only want my category and product, and that's all I want. I can call this category 2 parameter, and then hit create. And now I have a category 2 parameter. What this does is creates a separate parameter for you, but now you can kind of mix and mingle with the information that you have. So in this example, I already have a visualization built out where I'm using that category parameter that I already created. So for the example, let me remove it so that it's not confusing what it's doing. So in this example, I have just a bar chart in here. So instead of me just putting the category in this particular area, I'm using my category parameter that I just built out. And what this does is, now that I have my slicer selected, so now we have our subcategory, but I can quickly let my user select category, and then it shows that information for me. So quickly allows you to do, again, self-service that gives your users look at information really quick and on the fly, and without having to do like disconnected tables and all this other stuff the way to do the parameters. So this is a really cool feature. Another thing that's cool that I learned is that not only does it work for your actual fields, it actually works for measures. So in this example below, I'm using the exact same category parameter, but this time I'm using 2 measures that I created. So I have total orders and I have total sales that I created. These are 2 different just DAX measures. But let's say I want to look at my category by total orders, but then I also want to look at it by total sales. So because I have 2 parameters on here, my x-axis is my category parameter and my measures parameter is the new one that I built out. And that's just the total order and total sales. So now I have the ability to flip-flop between the 2. So I'm looking at total orders. If I select total sales, we see not only does it change the total sales, but it also changed the currency information as well. So you also have that numeric value in there as well. So again, when it comes to data types and data storage, This is just really great. It makes it really easy for your users to look at a lot of different measures at once and flip flop. So if I go to subcategory, I'll look at what my total sales are by subcategory. Same thing about total orders as well. So it's just really, really cool feature that I think will be really impactful going forward. So that's that. All right, last one will be data visualization. I think I have it up. I don't. So if I do data visualization, a couple of things here that are really cool that you can leverage is while this is loading, when it comes to JSON. So if you don't know what themes and import themes are, you can create your own type of theme. Basically, you come in here in a modeling and view. And let's say you want your theme to be red, blue, yellow. I only want my font size to be Times New Roman 14 size, and my pie charts are this, and all this additional stuff you can do. So what you can do, there's a couple things you can do. You can import a JSON file. So I was coming here and select the JSON file that I want to use. I would go to my JSON file, which has information in it, come in here and import it. And now I see that because of the JSON that I have, it's, you know, the color schemes that I want, I can import it, and it works across the entire workbook. For those that know JSON, this is what it looks like. Give me a second. So the JSON file itself is basically, you can customize, you know, some of the information that you want. So this one I built out, which I'm gonna show here in a second. But in this example, if I'm looking at, let's say, data colors, these are the colors that I want specifically, visual styles and background, et cetera, et cetera. So you can input a lot of this JSON information and save it and then upload it to your workbook, and then you're good to go. Another thing that's really cool from a website perspective, so if you go to themes.powerbi.tips.com, this will create that JSON file for you. So let's say these are the colors that I want, and I'm just selecting random stuff. And I want blue, I don't know, but these are the colors that I want. And then let's say I go to properties, and I can either select this star asterisk right here, and it'll do it for all my charts. Or if there's individual charts that I want to only customize, let's say I want this donut chart, then I have the ability to customize that as well. So if I want the legend to be, you know, bottom, and if I want it to be, I don't know, black, what have you, you know, all this customization stuff that you can do. And then what you would do is, now that you've done all the stuff that you want to do, you come down here and select theme. You can download it, and I call this 30 minutes. And then now it generates that JSON file for you. And so now when you go to your actual downloads, you will see that information for you. And then everything that I just selected will be built out for you. So it kind of takes some of that coding stuff. So all the colors that I picked out are here for you. And then the visual style that I specifically told it that, like, for the donut chart, if I'm looking at the donut chart, here's what I want you to do. And I want your legend be this, bottom this, et cetera, et cetera. It just automatically generated that JSON file. And then, like I just showed you before, you come in here, you import it, and then you import it, and then you have it saved. So this is a really, really great website for some of that customization, data visualization stuff. If you have custom color palettes that you need, you could come in here and use that. Another thing as well, when it comes to background, so a lot of people, I don't know if you all have seen it, but some people use custom backgrounds for their visuals, and then you put your data on top of it. So a couple ways you can do that. If I come in here and I select canvas background, say I want to come in here and I wanted to create I created a background, whether I was using PowerPoint, Figma, Canvas, any of these BI tools, well, I'm sorry, these data visualization tools, I can create this tool and I can create the PNG and export it. So now what I have is the ability to, I have the ability now to drag and actually input data on top of this. So now that I have my backdrop, if I come in here and I select, let's say total sales, now I have it to where I'll make this, I don't know, KPI. I make this, and now all I gotta do is just kind of format it, compose it, and I have my visuals. But the background is the background, which is a static image that you can update, but now it gives you a little bit more flair and flexibility with some of that customization versus having just that standard build your visuals, kind of maybe doing the background stuff that you do here. You can create some of these background images that can be particularly client facing. You can see some of that information. So that is a way to get some background there. If you're not familiar with Figma, Figma is a free tool that has a lot of stuff. There's also Power BI layouts by the community. So this is one that I just downloaded from this person, and it allows you to do it. I think they get credit for it, but there's a lot of stuff and templates out there that you can look for. If you don't have a Figma account, it's really great. It's really easy to do, to build out, and you can use that for your backgrounds. Another thing is, one of my favorites is the navigation bar. So if we come in here, and I have too many things up. So we come in here, and if let's say I want to quickly navigate to different reports that I have. If you go to insert buttons, and we go to our navigator, there's a page navigator, and then there's a bookmark navigator. Page navigator is the newest release that just came out a few months ago. And basically what this does, it automatically creates a page navigator for you. And every time you create a new worksheet or a new report, it automatically builds it out for you, and it gives you the ability to just click on it and go to that page. So if I select Control click, it takes me to my Tennessee sales, California sales, and page 2, which I just built out. But in this example for page 2, let's say I don't want this to show up here. If I right click and select hide page, it is removed from my navigation pane. So only the stuff that is shown will display in your bookmarks. So for anyone who's ever done any navigation with bookmarks and buttons and all this stuff, it can be a pain when you have to update a report page. You have to update your buttons and all this other stuff. So this ease of use makes it really easy for you to create some custom navigation for you. And then last one, a couple things from a Power BI perspective. It's not necessarily my actual development, but if you're looking for ways to learn some of these tips and tricks, Workout Wednesday is a challenge that is created online for the Workout Wednesday Power BI challenges. If you come in here, these are weekly challenges that come in here, and basically you can do, and there's different types of things. So one example could be leverage field parameters. Another one could be Power BI compared to series, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different challenges in here. But in this example, what I'm going to show you is from a data visualization standpoint. We have in Power BI, we have our standard visual pane here when it comes to creating reports. So we have our, these visuals that we want to do. And then you have your 3 dots, and you go to the app source, you can download information, you can do different things as well. But let's say you want to do some customization. There is an add-on called Deneb that allows you to do some customization, some JSON, and some really, really cool things out there with some of your data. So in this Workout Wednesday challenge, the challenge was to, in essence, use that add-on, like I'll show, and create this dumbbell chart from March to July using the data that they have. So this is just basically an exercise that shows you how to use some of these add-ons. Persons run, I think one person works for the Microsoft team, 2 people are consultants and do everything, but basically trying to bridge the gap between data visualization worlds and to give particular challenges. So most people I know definitely haven't seen this type of visualization in Power BI, and it gives you the template and even the workbook for how to create it. So it's not really a tip and trick right now, but it's a way if you're trying to pick up and learn different things. Workout Wednesday challenge, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of great stuff in here. And then that actual, if you go in here, go to the website and download it, this actually has a solution file for you and what it looks like, and actually have it up. So let me get that up and running. So if you come in here, you can see the workbook. You can even see like the YouTube video, how they build out this little solution, so on and so forth. There's just a lot of different cool things in here. And then in this particular one, again, no, I haven't seen too many people use just that particular visualization. You come in here, select the 3 dots, and then you come in and edit. And then basically, if you look at the visual, it just gives you some JSON. There's the wrench that allows you to kind of configure it how you want. I don't have too much experience with it, but I do know that there's a lot of cool stuff in here that you can do. So if you're trying to take it up to the next level and do like enhance some of your visuals, this is a really cool one that kind of gets you up and running and can challenge you in a good way. So that's just one example from Workout Wednesday. I think a question in here from the chat: how much time do workouts typically take? I think it depends on the level. So if you see the button up here, you see beginner, data prep, intermediate, and I think that could be a range depending on your expertise or what have you. So I think this one, the beginner one, can you switch between KPIs, so using the field parameters. I think that took me like 15, 20 minutes to do. These intermediate and even the ones that I'm not familiar with, like even the one I just showed, this probably would have taken me, I don't know, an hour or two, if not more, because I'm just not familiar with the technology behind the scenes. So it really just depends on how much time. And if you want to look at the video that's being built out as well, to kind of help you out. So it depends, right? I hate to give it an answer, but it depends. And with that, I don't know if I'm at 30 minutes, but that's all I got. So that is all of my tips and tricks. Hope you all pick something up. And if you have any questions, let me know.
I picked up a lot of things. What was everybody's favorite tip or trick? Mine was the comments in Power Query.
Yeah,
Nice. That was good.
I made my name so long in the description.
Mhm. My favorite was the use our column from examples to build out your if statement. Because that seems like it would do that really well, and that's a lot of typing.
Yeah, I've used that a couple of times where I'm just trying to quickly just type it up and see if I can save some of that custom development time. And that call from examples saves a lot of time. And it even does like sequential stuff. So it's just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it'll generate, some type of column, or it'll do like grouping for you. So if you have columns like 1 through 10, and you type 1 through 10, and then 15 through 20, 21 through 30, it'll automatically just understand that and it can do it for you. So, and that I'm just scratching the surface on that. So I feel like there's a lot more that column from example can do.
Yeah, totally.
It's another good thing that column for examples is good for, and that's for learning. Like if you're not very good, you don't know the language very well, then you can use the column from examples, and it'll give you the encrypt that it uses to generate that. And it's an interesting starting point for diving in, like how it thinks about doing it. And so, like, it's a way to pick up a little bit of the language a little bit at a time.
I saw Marcus said in the chat, I always feel like we could do more with themes. I also like the themes. It looks like they've improved that site since I last went to it.
So
And I
was a different site. It was more clicky based,
Mhm,
and it didn't pre-generate anything, but it told you like what to do.
mhm.
So my question really is, how often is that site up to date? Sounds like it may not be constantly,
Yeah,
because I always ran into like what's in Power BI now and what's in this other site I was using. It was like, well, here's these options. I'm like, that's not in Power BI now. Like, where is it hidden? Or
Yeah, it's a plus and a minus for Power BI that they're constantly updating it every month, right? There's 11 new releases a year to Power BI desktop, and there's interim releases to the service that they push out, throughout the months. And so the problem is that they're constantly kind of, they're moving the cheese, right? The layout's different, the format, the look is different, the buttons are in different places. So you're constantly, you finally get used to the tool, and then they change it on you, and you have to get used to it all over again. It's great that they're bringing new functionality, new capability to the tool so rapidly. But the consequence is that, like as soon as you get used to it, you got to learn it all over again. And it's really a challenge to keep up with everything. And so, you can go look at some blog post that was written a year ago, and if they've changed the UI in the last year, UI is going to look completely different from what's on there, and you just kind of got to go with it, right? Like you sort of can percolate, like, okay, this is what they were trying to do. UI's changed, like, okay, so let's see if I can figure out like how do I do this in the new UI.
I had an idea on that constantly changing product and themes. And it's nice that it's in a JSON format, because I can go to that website and pick my colors and pick what I want the bar chart to do. And then later, Power BI comes up with a new visual. And instead of me formatting that on every report the way I want, I can go to just that section of the theme, customize it, download it, and then merge it in, like in the code editor. Just drop it in there, just so I don't have to pick my colors again and do all the, I can just do the incremental change. I could format in that website and then merge it in the JSON.
So you like open up a text editor and actually copy pasting part of the code in.
Yeah, putting it in the place it's supposed to go. That's my thought. I haven't done it before, but
I've done it not through that site. I had a template set up of all my JSON posted it, made an addition, like forget it, reload the new one, and the new one got loaded. The only problem I kept running into is if you manually change things somewhere, it keeps those manual changed ones, and you have to go in and hit reset to default to get back to the generic version, which is annoying, especially when you have a lot of items.
Well, this was good. Thank you, Sekou.
Sure.
I've noticed you've been on YouTube more recently. I've watched some of your videos.
Have you?
Did you share your personal with people on here?
I have not. I haven't. If you want to go on YouTube, you can follow me at Sekou, SQLSEKOU, all social media platforms. So YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. I don't have anything on TikTok. I'll figure it out eventually. All content. But yeah, I have a YouTube page where I don't know if everybody knows this, but I'm in both worlds. I'm in Power BI and Tableau. So the goal for the content is how do we solve the same problem in Tableau and Power BI, and that's what my channel is facing. And I'll probably branching out and doing some Alteryx and Tableau prep and even some ADF. So we'll see. Just gotta find time in the day to do it all. But yeah, check it out. Follow me, subscribe. But first, follow this page, National Power BI User Group. If you're on YouTube, check it out and follow it.
When you do the Alteryx ones, can you notify this group? I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, is there a need for Alteryx stuff? Is there an Alteryx like demand in Nashville?
I use it constantly for my role in pharmacy.
Okay.
So
Who is speaking? Can you get information from you, Will?
Yeah, Jennifer, and she
Okay.
works at Health Trust.
Jennifer, Health Trust. Yes. Are we LinkedIn friends, Jennifer?
Say it again.
Are we
Are you
LinkedIn friends?
friend?
I have no idea if we're LinkedIn friends, but I'm on there.
Okay. I will try and find you because I have an idea about Alteryx. So I'll reach out to you offline.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, thanks again, Sekou. I think we should do more in this format because there's so many little tips that are so helpful. It's good I'd love to hear another person. They'd probably have 30 different ones. But
Yeah, I
if
think so.
anybody's interested in doing if you have 30 tips in 30 minutes, let us know.
Definitely. We have a lot of Nashville people here, so we'll be looking for local speakers as well. So if you're interested in talking, just let us know.
Well, thanks for joining, everybody. And everybody have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sekou. Bye.